Mario Kart is a game where you usually hold the A button to accelerate and play the video game. But today, I didn't want to do that, and instead wanted to see if it was possible to come first place in all 150cc cups without pressing A single time. So this means I can't normally drive forward, and I'm going to have to race completely differently than normal, which is obviously way slower. Also, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be turning off the auto steering and auto acceleration settings, as I think the challenge is more interesting without them. And for the way I've set this challenge up, I've switched the A and screenshot buttons on the Switch's settings menu. So whenever I would accidentally press A, I'll just create a screenshot. Okay, so let's now start this challenge off by first figuring out how I can actually race. At first, I tested boost panels and mushroom-like items that will boost me forward straight ahead, so I need to make sure I'm facing the right direction to get value out of these. Now with the speed I built up from this, I tried to drift and I couldn't. It seems like you need to press A to do a jump drift or a normal drift. However, I did find that you can do a jump drift backwards by drifting while reversing with B, which you would never use in an actual race, and it didn't seem to be too useful here, as it turned me around and it doesn't really give a big speed boost. Obviously, a way I can drive forward is to turn around and then reverse. The problem with this is it's just really slow, so I should really only use this as a last resort when I have no items. Next, I wanted to test which stats seem to be the best, and for right now, the only conclusion I could make is handling seemed to be the most impactful, as doing a 180 while reversing was far easier with a high handling stat. Anyway, now I was done with my testing and hopped into my first race in the Mushroom Cup. And at the start here, I found it's not actually that easy to do a full 180 by just holding B, and reversing is not nearly as useful as it initially seemed, as the Key2 gets angry at you if you do it for too long, and eventually it picks you up and places you back on the track, which will make me lose all my items, so it's really bad if that happens. In 24th place by a large margin, I now reach the first item set, which are going to be very important for this entire challenge, as in some situations, they're the only way for me to go fast enough to compete with the other racers. The only other way to outspeed them is to use the speed boost from tricks, as that will send me forward and I can carry the momentum of that to actually move decently fast across the track. Additionally, there are these glider ramps that are especially good for this challenge, as while you're flying, you don't have to press A to go forward. So here is where I realized the gameplay loop for this challenge, which is I need to constantly keep my momentum going forward. So when I can, I need to do tricks, and when that isn't possible, I need to use items to keep a fast pace. If I fail to keep chaining speed boosts together, I'm going to rapidly lose all of my speed and have to turn around to reverse at a very low speed. For example, here on the final lap, I ran out of speed before the second to last item set, so I had to reverse to get the items. Unfortunately, another racer with a mushroom bumped into me, boosting me off the track. Needless to say, this first race didn't go well, so I reset and tried again, and managed my items slightly better, got through the big turn and used the speed boost from tricks and the glider to secure 7th place, which obviously isn't very good, but at the start here, I really just needed to practice and get used to how I should play each race. Like on this next track, instead of reversing straight forward, which would cause Lakitu to pick me up, I found that alternating a left turn and a right turn while reversing prevented Lakitu from picking me up, which was slightly faster. As for the rest of the course, it didn't go very well. The other racers got a really big lead and I just couldn't catch up and came in 20th place. The next two races pretty much went equally bad. I usually just got stuck on large sections of the course without an item to speed me up, and I just couldn't win, so I lost my first GP. Since this was actually my first time playing the game, I now just played every cup one time to unlock most of the characters, and while I did this, I was hoping to understand how I should play each race for this challenge. For the purpose of time, we're going to skip over most of these races, because honestly, they don't go very well, but during these races, I did start to understand the game plan to actually win a race for this challenge. So first off, I pretty much always need to stick to a bagging strategy for every race, which means I'm going to intentionally stay around last place to get the best items possible. And I'm going to collect coins, which will slightly boost my speed stat. Then, near the end of the race, I'm going to go all out and use those items and try to make a quick comeback and hopefully snag first place. This is actually pretty difficult because I need to be really careful with when I time my comeback, as if I do it too early, I'll get first place with no good items, I'll lose all my speed and have to reverse to clear the track, which will likely result in me getting around last place. And if I time a comeback too late, I won't be able to get first and will only probably get like 10th, which will make it really hard to win the GP at the end. To win, I need to place well in all 4 races. As for the items I'll get in last place, most of them are pretty useful. Triple mushrooms are very versatile, golden really helps to make a big comeback, the bullet bill is great on tracks with difficult turns, and the mega mushroom is really bad, as I can't use another item while it's active, and unless I already have some speed built up, it just doesn't do anything. I have to just wait for it to end. The star is the same as the mega mushroom, but it's slightly better since I can still use my second item. Finally, the shock is very important for this challenge, and it's not because I really benefit from what it does, it's more that if it's used against me, I'll lose all my good items, and if this happens while I'm making a comeback near the end of the race, I'll just lose. Luckily, there is one way I can outplay this, which is to make sure the shock has been used before I make my comeback, as once the shock has been pulled, it's put on a long timer before it can be pulled again. So if I pull it, or notice one of the CPUs has used it, I'll know it's safe to make a comeback. So that's what I learned from doing all the cups, and now I was pretty sure I understood a basic plan to win in the Mushroom Cup. But before I could win, I had to play each track a few times to understand where I need to use items and when I need to time a comeback to get first place. After a little practice, this is the best run I got. At first, to turn around, instead of just holding B, I slowly tap the button as it turns me around slightly faster. Now I charge up an orange backwards jump drift, which compared to a blue version is actually useful, and it lets me reach the first item set where I'll reverse to pick up 2 items here. Since this is early on in the race, these items guarantee me 2 sets of triple mushrooms, and I'll use these to cut across the off-road, reach the right rail, and trick on this and use my other 2 mushrooms to chain into the next item set, where I got a bullet bill to help clear this turn, and with the bullet I hold right so it takes the glider path, which carries me to a rail, and I finish the first lap. Lap 2 plays pretty much the same as lap 1, but I do bag at the start here for good items. Going into the final item set for lap 2, I get shocked, which is great because I don't have to worry about that now, and here I bag for hopefully 2 good items, which I didn't get as I got triple mushrooms and unfortunately a mega mushroom. With 1 shroom, I gain some speed to take the glider path, then land on the rail and onto the pipe, and use a mushroom to take the shortcut. After I jump off, I can use the mega mushroom to keep my speed on the rail. Once I jump off the rail, my items will get me through this turn, and the rest of the track is nothing special. So I ended the race in 4th place, which might not seem that good, and in my practice attempts, I have got first place in this race. But coming first is pretty reliant on item luck. Like, if I have a golden mushroom, I can clear this turn really fast, then use trick boosts to easily win from there. If you're curious on why I'm not resetting and trying for first place here, it's because the second track, Crown City, is significantly more inconsistent. Usually I would get like 10th place, and coming close to first is very reliant on getting the right items at the right time to not lose any speed. So at the start, I have to turn around, then charge up a blue mini turbo to give me the speed to ride this rail. I'll jump off at the end and reach the first item set, where I'll quickly turn around and use a jump trick to reach the boost panel, and it, along with a mushroom, will send me to the glider ramp. That I'll basically ignore, and then reach this line of coins, which I'll reverse into to nearly max out my coins. From here, I can pretty much just use my items and follow the road until the final lap. Right here, I need 3 mushrooms to make it to this ramp, and at the end of the section, I need another mushroom boost to stay fast, which I don't have, so I bump into someone with mushrooms and use the boosts to reach the next set of items, which I need triple mushrooms from, as I need one to get past this section here, and another a little later right here. This glider section requires no mushrooms, so I could save my final one for just at the end to boost me into first place. Looking at the leaderboard, this run is looking pretty good, because Donkey Kong is doing really bad, which is really good for me because the character you unlock during the cup always performs really well. They usually always race a nearly perfect GP, so if they're underperforming, my odds of winning the cup are way higher. So I was confident I could win going into track 3. After an orange jump drift, I observed the amazing $80 game orange texture, and now's a good time to explain that these driving to the next course straight line sections basically don't matter for this challenge, as usually they include massive off-road shortcuts that benefit me, the guy in last place, quite a lot, and honestly, making a comeback is pretty easy until I reach the actual good part of the video game. So here, and on most future tracks, I'm going to just be skipping through most of these sections because they don't really matter. Anyway, as for the actual track, I use the rails to the left side of the road to keep my speed with tricks, which won't work nearly as well on the right side as it doesn't drop me off near this rail. So staying left lets me keep my great items going into the track. Here, I just want to stay on the rails so I can keep my speed, then right here, I'm going to use my bullet bill into the shortcut, which will drop me off around the turn where I can ride the rails. Then, when the time is right, I can use my golden mushroom to boost my way forward and carefully take the turn and end the race in first place, giving me a small lead going into DK Spaceport. Like I said last time, we're going to mostly skip over the first part of the race, as the race doesn't really begin until I reach the actual course. With a golden, I made it past this first turn, and I needed the Mega Mushroom's slight passive speed boost to reach the glider section. Right here, I take a small shortcut which leads me to the next item set, along with the first of DK Spaceport's U-turns. These are really annoying as I need a mushroom to clear them, or else I'll have to slowly turn around and reverse. Since there's one of these turns near the end of the track and they require a mushroom, I need to be really careful with when I time my comeback, or else I'll lose at the very end. Anyway, next up was the bounce pad section, and like most of the other sections on this track, tricks alone will give me the speed to continue forward. From this point onwards, the track is pretty straightforward. I just boost through these turns and trick on the other sections to maintain my speed. For the final part of the track, some mushrooms and tricks got me to the end at a disappointing 9th place. Luckily, Yoshi and DK also both didn't do well on the race, so I technically just barely won by tying with Yoshi. This took me like 20 hours, so let's hope the Flower Cup is a little easier. On the first track, Desert Hills, I do some backwards charge jumps, pull triple mushrooms on the item boxes, and use the mushrooms to take the off-road. Then I collect some coins and eventually reach the next item box with the trick section. Here, the trick boost's momentum can carry me forward, and a bullet bill through the off-road can clear this final section until lap 2. This lap isn't really necessary to explain, but going into lap 3, I need to make sure I have either a bullet bill or golden mushroom to make a comeback. And if I don't have any of them, I need to bag on the first item set, and I found that if I was around 14th place, I had a pretty high chance to pull a golden mushroom, which I could use to cut across all of the off-road and make it to the next item box. And in the bullet bill's case, as long as I don't pass too many racers too quickly, it should also drop me off around the next item set. With tricks, I can clear the next section, and for the final part of the course, I need either triple mushrooms to send me over to the glider, or a golden mushroom to take the off-road shortcuts and secure me an easy first place. Assuming I get the right items going into lap 3, this track is pretty easy to win. Shy Guy Bazaar, on the other hand, is a lot tougher, as once we reach the actual track, there's only really one off-road shortcut, so making a big comeback is pretty hard. Until the item box before entering the track, nothing really matters. Once I'm here, I want as many mushrooms as I can get, so I was pretty lucky to get a golden and triples. With the golden, I can keep my speed through the off-road, then chain it into the next item set. Without accelerating, I found taking the upper path here to be a little inconsistent, so I prefer to use 2 mushrooms to take this ramp and use trick boosts to allow me to reach this sharp turn that is hard to steer on because I can't drift. So I use my golden to build up my speed again, and until the end of the track, everything is pretty self-explanatory. though at the end I need some way to cross the off-road. On this run I had a mushroom, but even a mega mushroom or a star could get me to the trick ramps if I had no alternative choice. This mushroom secured me first place for right now a perfect GP. Wario Stadium is a track where the shock happening early is a necessity. It needs to be on a timer, as if I get shocked just as I arrive at the track, around this point reversing to the next item set will take way too long, and first place will pull too far ahead and I won't be able to place very well. Luckily, on this attempt I got shocked just before the bridge, which is near some food items that I used to recover my speed, and the shocked out mushrooms gave me the speed to reach the big bridge, where I could trick to have enough momentum to reach the next item set. I need triple mushrooms for this next part, which leads into the actual track, which is one of the rare courses where I don't actually need many mushrooms to drive, as there are many trick ramps to boost me through. This turn can sometimes require a boost though. At this point here, I do need one mushroom to make it to the big ramp, and after I land, I need one final mushroom to make it past the off-road, and now a trick boost can carry me to a first place finish, continuing the streak for perfect races. With a 13-point advantage over Wario, it's basically impossible for me to lose on the final track. Wario has to get first place, and I have to get last place for me to not lose first place. So winning was basically guaranteed. So let's skip ahead to me reaching the airship, and in case you were wondering, the shock happened right here, so the CPUs should not be able to pull it again. Anyway, here I take the rails to keep my speed, take a shortcut, and then cut this turn tight, leading me straight into the next item set where I used 2 mushrooms to reach the rails. And unfortunately, a shell stops me from reaching the glider, forcing me to use another mushroom. Since I'm around 15th place, I was hoping to get some good items for the final turn. Unfortunately, I got awful items that literally don't do anything for me, so I got stuck on this turn, had to slowly reverse my way to the finish line, and ended the race in 24th place. Since Wario came first, I lost the GP by 1 point and had to try every race again. And to get another good run going, it took around 5 hours. I kept getting destroyed by terrible luck, and even when victory seemed possible, the final track of this cup is just really hard, primarily because of the turn at the end. This turn is really sharp, and reversing through it is way too slow, so I need good items like a golden mushroom to make it through. But I can't really bag for good items because this turn is at the very end of the race. And if I'm too far behind, the CPUs will get burst, which most of the time is going to cause me to lose the entire GP. So I had to think of a solution and do the entire GP one more time. Starting with lap 3 on Desert Hills, I use a golden to take the massive off-road shortcut at the start, then tricked across the hills and carried the momentum to here, where I used my mushroom to take the shortcut and barely reached the glider that carried me to a first place finish. At Shy Guy Bazaar, I had the shock going into the track, and at the start I bagged for a golden and triple mushrooms, which boosted me to the top half and safely to the next item set. With my 3 mushrooms, I cleared this turn, then drove completely straight and used my golden to secure me first place. Wario Stadium is where things took a turn for the worse, as I pulled bad items right here, which forced me to slowly reverse just before lap 3, placing me in 23rd. Coming first now wasn't possible, but triple mushrooms was a good pull, so I quickly made it past the next item set, then took the rail path to the left so I didn't have to mushroom through the off-road. After the big ramp, I had to turn as far left as possible, then use my golden to take the shortcut and end the race in 5th place, tying me with Daisy in points. So if I wanted to win the GP, I had to come first in this final race. Luckily, on the way to the track, I pulled the perfect items. Then with the rails, I could boost myself into first place, and now I had to use my mushroom to keep my lead and reach the rails, sending me to the glider. Just as I land, I use both my mushroom and my bullet, which will take this really sharp turn for me, and drop me off just before the finish line. To not lose all of my speed, I collect the coins, which gives me a tiny speed boost, which is just enough for me to clutch out first place and win me the Flower Cup. This cup was really annoying, mainly because the final track was the most difficult and RNG dependent. So if I had a good run going, it was really disappointing to lose just at the very end. So what's great about the next cup is the hardest track is the first one, DK Pass. Since it's the first race, it doesn't really feel too bad to reset if the race goes poorly, because then I don't have to redo like 3 other RNG dependent tracks. Anyway, the reason why this track is difficult is the large distance between the first item set and the second, which requires the equivalent of like 6 mushrooms for me to stay at a reasonably fast pace, and I'm going to need that going into the final lap if I'm going to place well. Also, this shortcut isn't worth the risk of losing my items, and the wall shortcut past the second set of items is not worth doing because it skips the items, which are way more valuable since I won't have any items going into this ramp, and some mushrooms are going to help me way more for the rest of the track. Anyway, let's actually start a race. So at first, I do a backwards jump drift to reach the first set, which is guaranteed to give me 2 triple mushrooms since it's the start of the race. Then with these mushrooms, I can boost my way through the sharp turns. At the second set, I take the ramp and then this rail to set me up to take this turn well. With my mushrooms, I could clear lap 1, and lap 2 is mostly straightforward. Bag at the start for mushrooms, and use my items to clear the difficult turns until the next item set. Going into lap 3, I wanted to bag for items that I needed to make it quickly through this next section. With the items from the next set, I could clear the final few turns and end the race in 7th place, which isn't too bad considering how hard it is to place well on this track. Track 2, Starview Peak, doesn't really matter until the item set at the start of lap 3, where I need some mushrooms, and 3 just wasn't quite enough. Luckily, with the Mega Mushroom's small speed boost from the coins, I've reached the boost panels, and with no items, I had to turn around to enter the glider section. I got very good items here, and they boosted me all the way into 2nd place, going into the final glider section, where I got very lucky with a blue shell hitting first and my Mega Mushroom letting me dodge the shock, so I ended the race in 1st place. Leading into the next track, Sky High Sunday. This is one of the rare tracks where trick boosts alone can almost carry me through the entire track. This part after the glider section is the only place where a mushroom can be really useful. So in the intermission part of the track, I actually wanted to keep up with the other racers going into the track rather than just bagging. So I entered the track in 11th place with a boost and food item. After the glider, I could take the off-road and use tricks to stay fast for the next section. Going into the final turn, since the shock happened fairly recently, I was pretty sure it was safe to take the wall shortcut and then drive in a line, earning me a respectable 2nd place. Looking at the scoreboard, in order to win the GP, I need to place 1st on Mario's Galleon. Let's start right here, where I had the shock, so I didn't have to worry about that, and I chained it into the first set and immediately used the bullet. Now I used my golden until the next set, and got really lucky by pulling another golden, which boosted me through the entire water section. Now a boost here allowed me to reach the ramp, and then the 3 mushrooms I pulled could carry me to the line, and thanks to the blue shell, I just barely managed to pull ahead of my competition and come in 1st place and win the GP. So next, I could try out the Shell Cup. This is probably the hardest cup to place well in thus far. The first track requires really good item luck to come in 1st place. The second track is probably the easiest, I just need a few mushrooms around the final section. Track 3 is hard because it's difficult to make a comeback as there's only one off-road shortcut. The final track is basically some straight lines and like 4 turns. There's not many places to trick, so I need mushrooms to keep up with the CPUs. Jumping into the first track with Baby Park, but again, this track is really straightforward. As long as I pick up the coins, I need at least 1 boost to go from the first set of items until the trick ramps, which gives me the speed to reach the final turn, where I'll need a few mushrooms to finish the lap. Overall, my performance on this track doesn't really matter until the final lap, where I need to have a golden mushroom to boost me through the off-road, and all the way to the end to quickly pass the other racers and secure me 1st place. On Faraway Oasis, I bagged at the starting line and was rewarded with a bullet to take this turn. Then by doing tricks and riding the rail, I could keep my speed until the water section, and with my current items, it was faster to take the lower path and use mushrooms to cut across the off-road. For the final part, my golden mushroom boosted me to the end, and I won the race. Crown City is probably the hardest track in the cup, because in order to win, I need very specific items from this item set of triple mushrooms and a golden mushroom. mushroom, which I didn't get. So I used the star and mushroom to reach this section, and the rest of the shrooms could clear the turns and let me reach the final item set. I need mushrooms here if I'm going to place well, and I did get them, but I mashed through them too fast. So now there's no easy way for me to reach a high speed for the final turn, so I debated just resetting the whole cup, but I decided to finish the race by using a backwards mini turbo to have the necessary speed to get a trick off this ramp, and I used the bird guy's mushrooms to barely clutch out 23rd place, placing me 5 points behind King Boo overall. If he gets third for 10 points and I get first for 15 points, I can still win the cup. Going into Peach Stadium, I had a golden mushroom, and I used it to boost through the next 2 turns, and when it ran out, I bagged a little, so when I used the bullet, I could get a 10th place item box, giving me a decent chance to get mushrooms. After drafting Goomba, I used one of these mushrooms to reach the ramp section, and my remaining 2 shrooms allowed me to pass Lakitu and win the race. As for King Boo's performance, he got hit right near the end, so I won the GP and was now halfway done, and like 60 hours into this challenge. Anyway, the Banana Cup was up next, which overall isn't too hard. The first track, Peach Beach, is the hardest in the whole cup, as there's no big mushroom shortcuts, and for the final water section, I have to use mushrooms to overtake the CPUs, which requires really good luck. Salty Speedway is similarly pretty tough, but near the end, there's a few places I can trick to stay at near top speed, and as long as I have good items going into the final water area, I can take the shortcut and hopefully place well. Dino Jungle was a track that initially I found to be quite hard, but eventually I found a strat where I bagged on this item set, which lets me take the big off-road shortcut and usually place decently well. Question Mark Block Ruins is a track I practiced for like 5 minutes to learn the shortcut that I concluded without accelerating is too inconsistent to go for, so I only really went for it as a last resort. The rest of the track is pretty easy as there's plenty of places to trick. Okay, so now let's start on Peach Beach. At the start, I, as usual, charge up an orange backwards jump drift to reach the first set of items. That gives me some mushrooms that I use to take the boost ramp, which sends me over to another, and I can ride the water and chain my shrooms into the next item set. And the items I get there should carry me to lap 2, where I can pick up some more items to clear the next 2 sharp turns, and usually I can trick through the left section here, but I have a bullet, so I just use that. Until the water section, everything is pretty obvious, and on the water section, I need to bag for some mushrooms, as I'll need them to cross the water, which lets me take the booster ramps to give me a little distance, but on this huge straight line, I need mushrooms. Luckily, the item box gave me a golden, and I used it to boost straight to the end, and I finished in 5th place. As for Salty Speedway, I need good items going into the track, so I bagged at the line and used tricks and a golden to get through the starting section and the somewhat sharp turn. After a few trick boosts, I used the bullet into the off-road, which carries me to the final big water area, where I used my golden to boost ahead, take the shortcut, and just barely beat Birdo and come in 1st place. Dino Jungle is really straightforward. I just need a few speed items going into the track to make it past the dino section, then I need to pick up an around 14th place double box on the next item set that has a high chance to give me mushrooms to get me past this turn and across the big shortcut. I almost fell off the track here, and on this turn I used my golden to boost past Luigi and win the race. Since I'm 5 points up from Birdo, I don't need to do anything too risky on the next track. All I need is 3rd place to tie with them and win the GP. So going into the Question Mark Block Ruins, I need some speed items at the first section, and a bullet was easily enough to clear this turn, along with the really sharp turn that I'd need a mushroom for otherwise. At this point here, I had to use another mushroom, and honestly, right now my placement wasn't looking too good. Luckily, I pulled the blue shell, and would you look at who's in 1st place? Birdo, my only competition. So even though I failed the setup for the shortcut, I could mash my items to blue shell Birdo, and with triple shrooms, I overtook her and ended the race in 5th place. Just good enough for me to win the whole cup. The Leaf Cup had a few tracks that were a little tough for me to get down, like Cheap Falls was annoying due to the water handling, and Boost Cinema was really hard as there's no good places to make a comeback since there's no good off-road shortcuts on the track. Dandelion Depths was fortunately pretty easy. At the start of the track there's a lot of ramps, and I only really need mushrooms for this turn and the shortcuts at the end. Drybone's Burnout has a decent wall shortcut at the end, and there's lots of places to trick, so it was really easy to place well there. On one attempt though, I did just barely lose to King Boo and come in second in the cup, so that was fun. Anyway, as for how the tracks actually went, at the start of Cheep Cheep Falls, I do the usual, then use my mushrooms to get to the water section, and use my bullet to take the off-road shortcut. A golden mushroom boosted me to lap 2, which is mostly the same as lap 1, but this time I rode the wall here, as if I stuck to the ground, I would have to use a mushroom. But since I took the wall, I could jump for more speed and safely land near the items. Then the rest of the lap is no different than the first. At the start of lap 3, I bag a little to get an item box with a decent chance for triple shrooms, and I use my golden to get to the part with the climbable wall. And this time, I don't take the wall and instead use a mushroom to take a tighter line, which sets me up to take the alternative path after dropping down, and with tricks and a mushroom, I passed the second waterfall, then took a big shortcut at the end to secure me first place. On Dandelion Depths, the shock can be really punishing on the final water section, so I had to be careful. At the track itself, I bagged slightly for better items at the line, then with trick boosts, I got past the next turn and used mushrooms to reach the next set. I then spammed my golden to boost into second place. With triple mushrooms, I easily pulled ahead of King Boo and came in first place. But my first place streak would come to an end in Boo Cinema. Just before reaching the track, I need a lot of boosts to clear these turns, which usually means I'm going into the cinema with no items, and the first set has no double boxes, so I always opted to bag here to have enough speed items to safely reach the next set. But this puts me in last place, and while I was making a comeback, I got hit by the giant snowman, so I wasn't going to place well here. But I did get some really lucky item pulls, and the mushroom boosts let me make a small comeback and golden all the way to 17th. Which put me 5 points below King Boo in score, so I need them to perform poorly in the next race, Drybone's Burnout. Around the start line, I had a golden to boost me through the first section, and my triple shrooms could help me recover if I made any big mistakes, like Boo did by existing in first place. Past this area was the glider that I rode to the top path, where I avoided the rail to be safe and used tricks and a mushroom to follow the road, and then I tricked onto the wall for a small shortcut, then used my final mushroom to send me to the 2 trickable surfaces that boosted me to the finish line. Since King Boo made the fatal mistake of being in first at the wrong time, they got 6th and I won the GP. The Lightning Cup is overall pretty easy. Moo Moo Meadows has lots of off-road shortcuts, so making a comeback is easy. Choco Mountain and Toad's Factory require a little bit of good item luck, and while I struggled a bit on Bowser's Castle because of the sharp turn at the end, by practicing it in free roam, I learned the big shortcut along with the correct way to take the final turn for this challenge. For more details on Moo Moo Meadows, I jump drift over to the items and I use them to cross this really long section where there are like no ways for me to keep my speed, as there were very few trick ramps. So the track actually requires me to use a lot of mushrooms. There isn't really many places on the track to keep my speed, so most of the track is just me bagging to use speed items to take big off-road shortcuts, meaning nothing really matters until lap 3, where on the first item set I slow down to get 2 items, one being a golden mushroom that I use to make it to the trick ramp, then I head into the off-road and use the bullet through the item boxes, picking me up another golden mushroom that I use to take the ramp shortcut, and then boost into first place, and another mushroom gives me the speed to reach the trick ramp at the end to end the race. Next up was Choco Mountain, and the strat here is to bag at the line for mushrooms, so I can take the 2 big off-road shortcuts, and then I can take the booster ramp. With my triple shrooms, I can then reach the next set, where I'll bag for a 15th place box that gives me the perfect items to win, and I spam them to take this next section as tight as I can, and my golden could boost me to the ramps at the end of the course. Finally, the speed from tricking can carry me to the line. Course 3, Toad's Factory, is really straightforward. After bagging for an item, I just need to spam my mushrooms through the conveyor belt section, then I can trick to get me past this entire area, and for this sharp turn, I need some mushrooms to clear it. Then once I exit the building, I just cut the off-road with a mushroom, and after taking the boost panels, I make a small mistake at the end, which costs me first place. so I was just 4 points up going into Bowser's Castle. After tricking past the first turn here, I used 2 mushrooms to boost to the ramp and used another to reach the next item set, but I bumped into the wall, so I didn't have the speed to trick, and I had to use my golden mushroom into the glider, which was really bad, as I got really unlucky with a golden shell in my second item slot. Since I was really far behind with bad items, I had to take a risk and go for the shortcuts, where I got shocked, fell off the map, and almost lost all hope of winning. Fortunately, in this section specifically, you can get a startup boost without pressing A for some reason, so I could take the ramp, then to not lose my speed, I had to draft Chuck, then after the glider, I held right until I saw the finish line, and used my remaining items, securing me 4th place, just good enough to win the cup. So now, the only cup left was the special cup. The first 3 tracks wasn't really too hard. Acorn Heights can be done mostly shroomless, Mario Circuit has big off-road shortcuts, and while Peach Stadium required some decent item luck at the end, the first and second tracks being easy means I didn't really have to place that well here to win the cup. Rainbow Road on the other hand was actually really annoying because I need to get good items from the final item set, or I'll lose all my speed on the final turn, then get comboed, come in last place, and lose the whole cup. So basically, the final race is complete RNG at the end, which sucks. Anyway, a track that didn't suck was Acorn Heights. This track is pretty enjoyable as I don't really need good RNG to win, as the only part of the track that requires me to have a mushroom to stay fast is from the starting line to the boost panels. The rest of the track can be played with mostly just trick boosts. Like after this glider section, there's plenty of places to trick, so I'm not really losing any speed from not pressing A. Assuming I don't mess up the big shortcut here, I can use tricks to reach the vine rails and ride them to the line. Lap 2 doesn't really matter, so let's skip ahead to the final lap. After tricking and taking the glider, I use my Mega to block the red shell. By following the rails and trying my best to take the shortcut, I reached the final section where I messed up the final vine strat, which doesn't really matter as my triple shrooms could take me to the booster panels and then to the finish line. As for Mario Circuit, going into the track, I bagged for good items and did not get good ones, so I turned around for Lakitu to pick me up so I could get new, better ones that I immediately used to make a small comeback, and now I just kept using mushrooms since there's basically no way for me to go fast without them on this track. At the next item set, I need to make my comeback if I'm going to place well. Unfortunately, I have a Mega, so I can't get 2 items here. Luckily, by drafting, I clear this turn, and the triples I pulled could quickly get me to the next set, where I pulled triples again, and I used them to boost my way to 4th place. So Peach Stadium is a pretty simple track. As long as I have some speed items going into the track, I can take this big shortcut, then I can follow the boost ramps until the really sharp turn that I use a bullet to clear while dodging a shock, which doesn't really help me as I don't have any mushrooms going into the final turn. So I intentionally fall off and then bag for good items like a golden that I mash through the final turn, then I use my triple shrooms to pull ahead of Mario and come in second place. So I had to come first in Rainbow Road to win the GP. Anyway, Rainbow Road is a track in the video game, and the CPU races are oddly easy to overtake here, though it's pretty easy to make a comeback, and overall the first 90% of the track is completely inconsequential. Everything is decided by the final item boxes, so basically all I need to do is max out my coins and stay in the back for good items in the second to last item set. And triples and a golden were perfect. After landing from the glider, I used my shrooms to carefully navigate the track until the item set, then I hold B to not fall off here, and I mashed my golden to try to pass all the other racers, reach the glider, and use one final boost to secure me first place and finish this challenge. This challenge is really stupid because basically every track requires some extent of good RNG. If I got unlucky, it was impossible to win the cup and I had to reset, which happened to me a lot. I spent over 100 hours doing this. So if you want to support my suffering, maybe like and subscribe, and you can tell me in the comments if you think I should try this challenge for other game modes of the game like the Knockout Tour or online. Anyway, that's it, video's done, bye.